Welcome to the TryPod, where we break down the NRL every game, every week from a punting perspective. It's your good old friend Winnie here. I hope you all had a wonderful long Easter weekend. Sending a big congratulations again to Clarkey. Welcome to another addition to his family. That's part of the reason Clarkey's not here. For those who don't know, the guy works full time, then runs Clarkey's column basically full time on top of that in his spare time. Now he's juggling being a father of three. And given the current circumstances of TryPod that I've tried to share with you guys along the journey, we don't have a sponsor on board. I can't compensate Clarkey's time. I was the one who said to him, take a hiatus, free up the time you usually commit to this show, and I'll try and steer the ship. I think the followers will help me out. You guys can add your insights in the comments. I know you guys will have my back, and that's why I'm here off a 2-2 round 7, where once again I'm a little bit salty just because once again we're winning as easily as you like. Dolphins plus 14.5. They get up by 20. Best performance in the club's history, if you ask me. You've got the Panthers. First time I've backed them this season. They were minus 3.5, won by 28. Look, I'll take my medicine. I tipped Brisbane to cover the line, and they didn't win the game in extra time in New Zealand. But then I take Titans plus half a try. You lose for Feeder and Campbell before kickoff. You lead 16-0. It's 4 tries all with 15 to go. Once again, you lose by half a try. And for those playing at home, again, the TryPod records so far this year, 15 wins. 0 of them, 0 have been close. 0. Not one close win. But out of 10 best bet losses, at least 4 off the top of my head have been within a try. So I feel like I'm seeing it close to 70%. My record only sits at 60%. Before we get to the best bets, I did the recap on Sunday night, so I didn't get to touch on Eels Tigers. Highly entertaining. Shout out Padonis, who made the sharpshooters 2-2, as Maddie the Undertaker is in the chat. G'day, Maddie. And Richard says Eels beating Tigers was no surprise, but it was a surprising game. Not much went right for West, in fairness. I probably don't have the time to allocate to get into it all. Share your grievances in the comments if you're a West fan. Let's say some key calls were either missed or went Para's way for sure. But the most unfortunate thing of all for the Tigers was that a guy named Mitch Moses was ready to return yesterday. You all saw why I tipped him for Dally M. I didn't know he was going to miss the first 6 weeks, but I did expect a big year out of Mitch Moses and probably a big step in the right direction for a Blues jersey, I'd say. If it's me, I don't care that they both wear 7. My halves would be the best 2 halves in the comp, potentially in Moses and Cleary. Now, speaking of the name Moses, that's been in the news, not just the player, but the manager, even more so, of course, the guy who didn't play yesterday, but is named for round 8. If you didn't know, Lockie Galvin has been named. I was speculating on that today. It's a tough situation for West, no matter which way they went. We'll get to that because it is the 8th game of round 8. And of course, I always lead the show with best bets. So here we go. I am taking the Bulldogs minus 3.5 in the game you can already actually see on the screen at $1.83 on Dabble against the Broncos. I just think that the doggies are flying. They're so well connected. They've got the big guns back. And Brisbane's going to have to reshuffle. Cobbo's at fullback, no Reece Walsh, where Brisbane would have had an advantage in the props. I think the Dogs have really muscled up. Max King's one of the form front rowers in the comp. I don't see any major advantages to Brisbane. And I know that they'll be desperate off a couple of losses, but I think I've got the stronger side. That line is all the way from right now is all the way from minus 3.5 to minus 7.5, depending on how you see it. So the market, is telling me I'm getting a nice price there as well. But I think the Dogs should be a solid favourite here. I think they do go to, it'll be 7-0. Then I'm taking the Dragons on the Anzac Day plus 2.5 at $1.87 on Sportsbet against the Roosters. And I basically see that as a 50-50 game. And so I will take the plus 2.5. I have been waiting for the right spot to take the Dragons. I'm starting to see the results come in. I'm seeing the team gel. They've got a new fullback, new 7, new 9 this year. The Roosters struggling, as we know, couple of key outs, couple of injury clouds over players they rely on a lot. I still think it's a coin flip, but I'll take that short start in what should be a ripper Anzac Day. Later on Anzac Day, I'm going to go Storm Rabbitohs under 48.5. Biggest reason is just the way that Melbourne's going to play in this one. They've talked about it in the presser that when Melbourne has won, it's been trying to outscore the opponent, not going back to their roots of grinding out results, really earning it. So I think there's going to be a real mentality to value possession, play a little bit less expansive. And you've got a Rabbitoh side that didn't score last week. I know they've got playmakers, but they will find it tough down in Melbourne. So under $48.5, $1.90 Ladbrokes is my play. And on Saturday, my fourth play is going to be Cowboys minus 7.5 at $1.84 on Sportsbet, hosting the Titans. The Titans are reeling. It's 3 straight losses for the Titans. And the Cowboys are looking to make it 3 straight wins here. Or is it even 4 straight for North Queensland? But they've been on a bye, righted the ship, fully healthy. The Titans are missing Kinney badly. Jaden Campbell's out. Fafita actually got named the Savo, but with that hamstring, I'm not certain. I think I've got the superior side in a great spot and at home. We'll get into the in-depth reasoning behind all of those 4 best bets. Let me know what you think straight away, guys. It's a little bit more challenging than usual, of course, because I'm doing the graphics and trying to highlight your comments and host and analyze all at the same time, but I'll do my best. And just on the note of saying we don't have a official show sponsor, reach out if you're interested. But I was thinking about it. We still have a relationship with Dabble. They've supported the show as a major partner in the past. Of course, I did Winnie's Kitchen, you might recall, last year. Maybe they didn't like how many times I won it last season, but with my same gamers. But I've still got connections there. If you're looking for a new bookie, use the code TryPod, TRYPOD. Send me a DM or tag me in the comments. Get in touch with me after you join. That is a little way you can support the show. If you want to see it continue, you want to try a new bookie, they're still good to play with, and they do have a great line for the Bulldogs for my first best bet of round 8. Let's get straight into that game. It is a beauty off the bat. As I say, minus 3.5 on Dabble, but as high as minus 7.5 on Ladbrokes. So obviously shop around. If it falls anywhere between that and 4 and 6 and 7 to a lesser degree, but particularly 4 and 6 are key numbers, it lands anywhere there, we can all be winners. And maybe people will disagree with me, although you've got to be brave to go against a Bulldogs side that's done nothing but win in 2025. After that heartbreaking loss in the finals last year, they haven't looked back. No major changes either for the Bulldogs after Berto and Kickout, of course, returned to help shut out South Sydney on Good Friday. Brisbane had an unhappy trip across the Tasman, to say the least. Reece Walsh picked up an injury very early, actually played the 80 minutes, and if you're a Broncos fan, maybe you wish he didn't. It was Walsh's extra time error that handed the Waz the 2 points there. So Cobbo is the new number 1. Mariner to the wing. Piakura does return from suspension. Billy Walters scored the opening try last week and is named at 9, but I just want to note that when Brisbane was mounting their comeback and looking most deadly, it was actually when Benny Hunt moved into hooker, which could be an option that Madge is going to continue to explore as Mam looms as being eligible to return soon. But I've got a Canterbury side that's been absolutely cooking this year. I have heard the doubters saying it's been an easy path. You can only beat who's in front of you. And when you're beating sides to nil especially, I've really got to take notice. And to me, that win over Cronulla undermanned and in Cronulla, the Cronulla side that I really respect, that is an awesome win on your resume. Beating Brisbane in Brisbane is never going to be a walk in the park. So this could silence the doubters more so. I know the marquee man is out for Brisbane, but you definitely expect a response out of Red Hill. So I'm not doubting that Brisbane will be bang up for this. It's just that I'm looking at the strides made by King, I mentioned before, Curran as well. You got Marnie sniffing that Origin jersey. What the Dogs lack in size, they are making up for in line speed, getting in the opponent's faces. I think Canterbury's going to win this. I think they've just got a real buzz. And while Brisbane's still trying to find their way, Canterbury's a rightful favourite. I thought the line should be 6. And so to lay 3.5, I'm happy to play it. And then I saw the Padonis is on this as well. And so I'm really curious, which side of the ledger is he going to be on with extreme lines in both directions, depending on where you shop. But also factoring in Padonis, a staunch Broncos fan, I don't have time to watch the guys' clips before they send it to me. So I'm intrigued to see which way he's gone as well.
G'day guys, Predonis here. For those who tailed me last week, we had to wait all the way till Easter Monday, but we got the chocolates with the Parramatta Eels, and we're going again on an underdog, and it's the first game of the round. And that's going to be the Brisbane Broncos at plus 7.5 at $1.90 on Ladbrokes and Neds. Put simply, I think the bookmakers have overcorrected for the fact that Reece Walsh is out. It's much closer to pick him. I like the fact that Selwyn Cobbo's back there. He can get their sets off to a better start because they've been struggling in that department so far. And for the Dogs, I think they're going to hit a little bit of a flat spot. They've been the form team all season, but you can't play at that same level and intensity the whole year. On the back of what was the Good Friday crowd, their biggest ever home crowd, I think that they will feel the effects of that and come down to earth a little bit here against a desperate team on 2 straight losses. I do still rate the Broncos as a good team, and I still do have them power rated in the top 4. So we can ride the home underdog. I think they're a genuine chance of winning this one outright. Happy to take the points. The line's just too big. Good luck. Gamble responsibly.
So there you go, the Predonis on the other side, which I think is a season first, where a sharpshooter is on the opposite play to my best bet. And I mentioned in the recap, anytime a sharpshooter has actually had one of the same plays as I've picked for a best bet, which of course is completely independent, that has won every time. But this is the first time we've actually been on the opposite side. So you know what I reckon is going to happen? I reckon for sure it's going to land somewhere from 4 to 7. And I think we can both get up there. But let us know in the comments, which side are you going to lean towards? Of course, for Predonis, with that win yesterday, he is 4-1 on his tip of the week. So I'm sitting here going, oh, wish I was 70%. I'm only 60%. Predonis is 80% on his play of the week that he has shared. You've got to respect it. But hearing Predonis say he thinks it's closer to Pick'em, I'm hearing a little bit of bias there. I'm comfortable with Bulldogs. Let me know how you see it. Let's move on to Anzac Day, and let me update the graphic there. You've got your head-to-head prices on the screen, and of course I'll try and remember to tell you the line. Good time to take a moment to pay respects to any man or woman, past or present, that served this great country, or our friends across in New Zealand as well. And the traditional game is always Roosters Dragons. Tricolours are favoured slightly, -1.5 to 2.5, depending on where you look. Billy Smith is back from suspension. Dom Young drops out. Butcher, Nat is injured. Egan does return via the bench. Crichton, Angus that is, returns from a groin strain. Emre Gula is on the bench for the Dragons, who scraped home last week over Manly, but will enjoy an 8-day turnaround in an attempt to make it 3 straight wins this week. I've got the Roosters, who have had a really tough year. Let me just check the comments. As Ryan says, he's with Predonis. And Richard, sometimes a team look close to a loss. I don't think that applies to the Dogs. I lean Dogs. There you go. So even the comments are split. So the Roosters have gotten up on a couple of occasions, on big occasions, I should say, when you take the scalp of Brisbane in Brisbane, you upset Penrith in round 2, which was a shocker, as in a shocking result. But certainly the consistency hasn't been there for the Roosters. And it was the Panthers who returned the favour on Saturday. That was our best bet. And on a side note, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, beauty of live podcasting, but I think every time there's been a rematch this year, the side that lost won the rematch. So I think those teams are 4-0. And the Roosters are one of those sides. They turned the tables on Brisbane, but then Penrith turned the tables on the Roosters. Eels yesterday was another one in that category. And we've always highlighted the revenge factor. This is an important game for both sides. Like, you'd say the Roosters, being only 2 from 7, are more desperate than a Dragons side that's 3-3. But because of the occasion, you feel both sides will be bang up for it. And I'm with the Dragons here because I just don't see any clear advantages to the Chooks. I look at the back fives, and I think both have got playmakers that cancel each other out. The Roosters' forwards depth is really starting to get a little bit thin, and St. George can mix it with them in that department. And the one area that basically every game, in fact, probably is not an exaggeration to say every game this year, the Dragons have been at a disadvantage in the halves matchup. But I don't feel that's the case in this one. When you look at Ilias and Flanagan line up against Smith and Savala. So I haven't been desperate to back the Dragons early this year. Talked about it's going to take time, a new fullback, a new halfback, a new hooker. but it's been a couple of months. Now I'm seeing the results flow through. I think that's a valuable 2 extra days of prep leading into this one. And that's all to say, okay, if you're making me pick a winner, I'm going to pick the Dragons by 1, but I think it's anybody's game. However, getting plus 2.5 at $1.90, it was enough for me to make it a best bet. Later on Friday, which again is Anzac Day, we have a new matchup. It's between the two sides in the comp whose name starts with New. New Zealand face Newcastle. The Warriors are minus 9.5 to minus 10.5. That's right. It's a pretty big line. Nickel Klukstar returns at fullback. Rocco Berry rejoins the side as well, that won, as I said before, in the 81st minute last week. The Knights were well off the mark against Cronulla, one-dimensional in attack, and the attack's being called into question, rightfully so, for the last few weeks. New Zealand don't necessarily light sides up, so this is a high line, and the biggest that the Warriors have been favoured by a fair margin this season. But Newcastle are really struggling, and reading between the lines of O'Brien's presser, which I like to do, I listen to every press conference. While there's no major outs for Newcastle this week, they sound like a few are walking wounded. So you better believe if Newcastle loses, the excuses will be ready if the Knights slump to a 5th straight loss. And that's right. Newcastle opened the year 2-0, but they are winless in their last 4, while New Zealand have won 4 of the last 4. As Ryan says, feels like an unders game. Definitely agree with that feel. And Luke says Knights team total under 18.5. And definitely agree with that angle, because I've got a Newcastle side that's no secret they're really struggling in attack. And then I also think that's not the strength of New Zealand. New Zealand will play a very simple brand of footy and just hope to wear you out. So I think there's also an angle here. While I don't have a best bet, the way I was thinking about the game is if the Knights keep it close, much more likely to be first half. If you want to play the Warriors, maybe you just lay the second half line where you're going to be able to play a minus 4.5, minus 5.5 second half. If you think the Warriors are going to win by double digits, I feel a little stronger that they would run away with it. That's how they've been winning, is sort of wear sides out, and then they can put on points at the end when the opposition medals are gassed. But it's a strange one, because the 10.5, I actually lean to the plus with Newcastle because that line is so big, and because I actually don't think there's – I should say it this way. I see these two teams on a similar level. It's just that it's a great spot for New Zealand. They're at home, of course. Well, they're in New Zealand. I forgot to say this one's in Christchurch, in fact. And the other reason this line's so big is just the trend lines, of course. New Zealand playing a lot better footy than Newcastle in the last 4 or 5 weeks. But the other aspect I'm wary of is the occasion and the fact that New Zealand fell short in their first ever home Anzac game a year ago, and that was as an even bigger favourite against the Titans. I think the Warriors get it right this time around and get confidence from that gritty win over Brisbane. I worry about Newcastle's resilience. Too much dependence on Ponga means that the Warriors can key in on Newcastle, who are quite a predictable team to defend. So sort of reasons why you could like either side, with the line being anywhere from 9.5 to 10.5. That's why I left it alone. But I do have a best bet, as I've told you, in the bookend of the triple header on Friday night, where the Storm play the Rabbitohs. Melbourne are minus 13.5 or 14.5. What I like about this week is most games, the line was going through a key number. So depending on, your ability to shop around, if it lands on the number, we can win with the plus or the minus. Now, whenever Melbourne plays the Rabbitohs at Amy Park, I'm contractually obligated to tell you that Souths have not won in Melbourne for many moons. If Clarkey was here, he'd tell you exactly how many. If someone knows in the comments, it's similar to that sort of Melbourne, New Zealand record. I think we're going back 15 years plus. But in 2016, in the TryPod group, I tipped a 600-1 multi. Every leg won except Souths, who are $8 head-to-head, had the lead, had the ball, minute to go, managed to give away 2 penalties, 1 in possession, went to extra time, lost in extra time. The multi still paid out as a winner, 80-1, thanks to extra time, extra chance. If you know, you know. But people forget 80-1 after a few years. People never would have forgot that 600-1 winner. So I got robbed there. Now I've got two teams that were both blown away on Good Friday. The Storm result certainly was quite shocking. There's no way I'm going to go against Melbourne after that loss. But of course, Grant is out, though I think Garrick is a really handy replacement. Meaney comes back, covers the loss of Howarth. South's lost Hubner. They do get back Jaden Sullivan. So if you believe the team lists, Latrell is at fullback, Walker is at 6, and Jai Gray has been moved to 14. But who knows how Bennett will really line them up. I'm going to play unders here because all Bellamy wanted to talk about was questioning his team's toughness, their manhood, and their defence. And not just on Friday, but saying, obviously, Melbourne got 40 in a row put on them on Friday, but saying Melbourne just trying to outscore teams and not willing to defend and value possession. I think there'll be a conscious effort. Take care of the ball, reduce your expansive play, make Souths go the long way down the field. It's a little scary when one team's got Pappenhausen, Hughes, Munster, the other side's got Latrell, White, Walker, Gray. But given that the Rabbitohs were kept scoreless last week and are changing the spine combination yet again, I do tip those struggles will continue in Melbourne, where it's always tough for teams. I predict the Storm's going to win it in the range of sort of 28-14. So that would be right around the line, but that would be a solid 6 points under the total, which is what I've taken for a best bet. As I find the summary, I'll put that on the screen again if you're tuning in after the first 5 minutes of the show, where we always share the best bets at the top. Now, speaking of best bets, we've heard from Padonis. The Undertaker, was that his first loss last week? I think, actually, Undertaker's at back-to-back losses, sorry. He was on the Rabbitohs game thinking they could keep it a little closer against Canterbury. That was not the case. So Undertaker looking to bounce back here. I've got his play. Based on his text, it might actually be a multi, but let's have a listen.
G'day guys. For anyone in the TryPod Facebook group, I gave the Bulldogs head-to-head win over the Broncos at $2. That is long gone now. It's minus 5.5 and $1.50. But I still want to be involved in the Bulldogs in some way for my best bet. And the only way I can do that now is I think I'm going to time with the Melbourne Storm just to win it head-to-head. And combining those two on double gives you $1.87. We all know how good Melbourne are off a loss. It's phenomenal. But if you tie in the fact that Melbourne had their worst loss maybe ever with the way that went down, this is a place where you just want to be on the Storm in some way. So adding these two teams head-to-head, $1.87 on double. Kind of a bit square, a little bit creative, but whatever you want to call it, that's going to be my bet for the week. Good luck.
So there you go, Matty. That was a great pickup. Matty took the Bulldogs, I think, before Brisbane had played. So, it helps when Walsh gets injured. But after having seen the Bulldogs destroy the Rabbitohs, he took them as a slight underdog in Brisbane. Obviously, an outstanding price. I'm still happy to lay the 3.5. Matty got another way of looking at it. You don't have to lay 3.5 with my best bet. You can just play the Bulldogs to win in Brisbane, but you've got to add the element of Melbourne wins the next night, which they are pretty short. What are they? $1.20-ish. We have seen double-digit favourites go down on Fridays this year. I think I talked about it in the recap. There's been like 6 solid upsets on Friday nights already this season, including about 4 double-digit favourites have already gone down. Hopefully Melbourne's not in that boat for Matty, but I do like his double up there on Dabble, and that's another sharpshooter that's actually weighing in on the Broncos-Bulldogs game, and I am grateful that Matty, who I think is also 60% 3-2 on his plays, he's on my side for that one. That's going to move us to Saturday, where the Cowboys play the Titans. You've heard my best bet is minus 7.5, and that line is also as high as 8.5 elsewhere. North Queensland had the bye after a good win in Perth. Bateman's back. David Fafita named to play is curious to me because I'd heard he was out about a month with a hammy. Khan Pereira also back for the Titans. You've got Haas and Fasul Malaawi, but that's the little bros, Cleese and Isaac, both dropped for the Gold Coast who missed the mark badly against the Finns, likewise against the Dragons, and then let 16-0 slip against the Raiders. The Cowboys have gotten on track and poised to win. It'll be 4 in a row. So the Cows have won 3 in a row coming into this game. while the Titans are the opposite. They've lost 3 in a row, and I think will be dealt a 4th straight loss here. And my main reasoning for playing North Queensland is it's just an outstanding spot, as Luke says, great pick, because you're at home, you're off a bye, the Titans are reeling, really missing Kinney. Then you take Jaden Campbell out of this side. So where are the points coming from for the Titans? And where the Gold Coast could get on top, you could definitely say they've got the bigger and better ruckies. But I love playing a team like North Queensland who relies on old fellas like McLean and Taumalolo when they're at home off a bye. It's when you're going to get the best production and bang for your buck out of those guys. And then on the back of it, Drinky, Deard and Robson, too dangerous for me. Cowboys win this game by more than a converted try. I'll put more comments up on the screen, but in fact, the third sharpshooter play is coming in hot. Benny Williamson, who got off the schneid last week in a play where he agreed with me and took Penrith, and we know how well that won, has a try scorer in this.
G'day punters, hope everyone's doing well. As always, thanks to Jacob and Clarkey for having me on. Hope everybody enjoyed the long weekend. Finally got the monkey off my back last week, 1-4, how good, looking to build on that moving forward. Back to my roots this week, I'm going to take Jackson Purdue. You can get him for $2.45 on Sportsbet, 365 holding out. They might have a better price, but I'll throw that up officially for now. Lots of time for Nanai on that left edge, but the Titans right has been getting hammered. They're conceding left centre tries at 67%. Purdue's strike rate is 67% as well. And he's been electric this year. Massive fan of him. So lock it in. Best of luck. Let's see if we can go 2-4 and start the rise. Cheers, lads.
So Benny is on a Cowboy. That gives me a little bit of added confidence for my Cowboys best bet. Nothing but Pancake says, does that mean Bulldogs destined to win, or does the Padonis tip negate the double? Well, that's the thing. I'm highlighting trends. I'm not saying that every time I agree with a sharpshooter, I'm saying it's a sure thing. I am going to make a bold prediction that we can all win. Maddie needs head-to-head. I need -3.5, and Padonis needs +7.5. So there's certainly a decent eye that we could thread. Well, it's not even really a needle that we need to thread. It's a decent window that we could fit in and all win. But that's the beauty of a podcast where we get to talk it out, listen to our reasoning and decide who you agree with. Or if you don't agree strongly, maybe you feel the line should be somewhere in the middle. Maybe you don't feel as convicted to have a play, but we just tell you how we see it, and then you do with that information what you will. Later on Saturday night, we've got the Panthers playing the Seagulls, and Penrith are -7.5 everywhere. Mitch Kenny suspended. Garner is out with concussion, but Tungo is back, replaces him in the centres. Big boost for Manly. Tommy Turbo is named to return at fullback. That shifts Lehigh Hopewadi to the wing. Gerbo, unfortunately, out, but Aloye is in. The Premiers struck back in a big way last week. I have no reason to really doubt that Penrith will do it again this week. It would be a Penrith play or nothing for me here. It's only going to end up being a big lean, with Manly getting 9 days between games after an awful scheduling run where the Seagulls lost 3 times in 11 days. I am wary that the Birds will fight here. I know how much Manly's teammates lift around Turbo, but the thing is, his counterpart, Dylan Edwards, and the Iceman Cleary, they looked basically untouchable on Saturday night, which is why I nearly laid 6.5. Sorry, I said this line 7.5 everywhere. Minor difference, you can get a 6.5 on 365. As Alexi asks, does this mean the Finns are default best team in the comp? You won't get an argument out of me. Who was everyone tipping in a grand final this year? A Panthers Storm rematch, and did the Finns just totally dispatch both of those sides? You guys be the judge. Sorry, I got a bit sidetracked there, but I had to give Alexi a shout out and talk about my Finns. So in this one, of course, Penrith have shown that they're still capable of making a 6th grand final. Played red hot last week. You know what's going to keep me off a best bet here as well is a little bit of self-awareness. I know that I am probably as low on Manly as any pundit or punter that's out there. And even I have a feeling that the Seagulls can lift here and play quite fearless. And I look at that Seagulls lineup and I see a lot of speedsters. And if Manly has that respect for Penrith, that they're not going to die wondering. They're going to shoot their shot. And I can see this being a really entertaining game with great attack from both sides. Maybe you look to and overs. It's just Penrith can't muck around here either. Just because they won last week to somewhat get the season some life, you don't want to undo the good work and blow this week as a home favourite. So look, I'll pick Penrith head-to-head. I'll lean to them, but I did not quite fire on the line. Just Common, can we get Benny in the bets, another expert tipper? So Benny is very welcome. He has shared one tip. Then he went overseas. He's told me he's back now. It's pressure on the boys because it's a small window to pick the plays, just like what I've got to come up with each and every week. But Benny's more than welcome, and he messages me all the time and definitely wants to share as many tips as he can. And if he doesn't get his clip on the show, he's definitely going to post in the group his favourite play for the week for sure. Benny was on fire. I think the final record was like 20-3 throughout the entire NRL season last year. So appreciate him and all of our sharp shooters. So that's how I see Penrith Manly is a Penrith win. Maybe Manly can be frisky and make it interesting. Not quite enough conviction on the line. This could be a beauty of a game. Alexi got me talking about the Finns early. On Sunday, we have two sides on 3-game winning streaks. The Raiders hosting the Dolphins at GIO. The Green Machine are -4.5. So both of these teams conceded the first 3 tries in their match last week before resounding wins. Sticky sticks with the same 17. Molo is in for the Dolphins. He got that release from the Dragons. Kalfusi's out. Marshall King remains sidelined. So Plath is named at 9, but of course he was forced from the field. I believe it was a foot injury in that demolition of the Storm. So I'm keeping an eye on that position. Look, nobody had Canberra as a top 4 team this year, did they? But the Raiders come into this game 3rd on the ladder and the only one of 2 teams with 5 wins so far this season, with, of course, the other one being the Bulldogs. At least 5 wins, I should say, because the Bulldogs are 6 from 6. What comes to mind for me is these two playing out a really thrilling golden point encounter last meeting, and the Raiders, I think the Raiders got the better of the Finns. I'm blanking a little bit because I know I came out of it really disappointed because my best bet was like Dolphins -3.5. I do believe Dolphins lost that and, ultimately missed out of maiden finals appearance by 1 win. And that's one of those games where I thought the Finns should have won. But Canberra's been a bit like that in recent seasons, is getting those gritty wins. However, the difference with the Raiders this year is also getting some comprehensive wins that make you feel that the Raiders is a real deal. I don't see them as a contender, but I definitely see them as a finals threat that is getting better every week. The battle of the sevens is where I'm looking, with Fogarty still off contract, and he's a veteran playing at a really high standard. And then you got the new kid on the block, Katoa. Geez, you talk about young halves and massive contracts. I hope the Dolphins have Katoa under contract for a long time. I should look into that, but nobody else look into that. I don't even want people talking about Katoa's contract. Everyone trying to outbid each other for Galvin, if you ask me. Look, both of these sides are deadly when they have prolonged possession. So whoever holds the ball and completes here goes a long way to winning this one. I think the bookies are on the money. I think it's a fair line that reflects the Raiders are at home. They're a little healthier, some young guns in form, but others like that are under the radar or maybe not anymore. Tommy Starling is playing outstanding, for example, keeping a couple of the other young guns, the young brigade at bay, because Canberra's got some younger sort of spine players that are nipping it at the heels of the veterans. So it's a lean to the Finns for me because I think this could be game of the round. But for the first time in 5 weeks, I'm actually not backing the Dolphins for a best bet. I've been on them this recent wave where they have covered 4 straight weeks. I respect the Raiders enough to say the line's pretty reasonable and it should be a ripper of a game, which leads us to the final match, Sunday afternoon at Leichhardt Oval. It's Wests against Sharks. It's a 7.5-point line, Cronulla favoured. And as I said at the top, Galvin does return. Let's talk about that in a moment. He's at 6. Luai shifts to 7, of course. Sharks have a good continuity, minimal changes, and Cronulla has answered back-to-back losses with back-to-back wins. It's been a rough week for West. I did a video about that today. When the Galvin news comes out 7 days ago, you're thinking, oh, we're playing Parramatta, the bottom of the ladder. We're 3-3, we're top 8. Then Moses comes back. The game doesn't go your way. And now you're really thinking, what's the short-term future? The season looks so hopeful. What's the long-term future? What are the answers? It's not something fun that the Tigers fans are going through right now. And I talked about the conundrum that Benji's facing with his selection. Now, it's been called a backflip, picking Galvin. I don't think that's fair to say that the Wests have backflipped by picking Galvin, because I think it's very justifiable to drop Galvin or rest him from first grade and protect him somewhat from the scrutiny, the spotlight, given the opponent that coincidentally was Para, who probably are $1.05 to be his next landing spot. I think you could keep Galvin out of that game and then justify that, look, if you're picking your best squad this week, Galvin needs to be in it. It's just that you worry about whether that fractures the squad. If the rumors were true that certain players didn't want him to play, like, why would that be any different this week? And of course, it's a tough game for the Tigers because Cronulla's that good. If the Tigers lose, what do you think people are going to say? People are going to point to, that there's disharmony in the squad. It's a home game. How do the home fans handle Lockie? But also, how does the 19-year-old handle it? I think that it's going to be hard there's question marks over how Wests respond and the focus levels, which is why I won't play the Tigers in this one. It was going to be, for me, Sharks or nothing. I see Cronulla as a stealth contender. Nico's played better the last 2 weeks. I think not overthinking it, running footy a little bit more. The Tigers will need to show the toughness that they had in the earlier rounds this year. They've had their moments, although yesterday didn't go their way. So for sure, Cronulla's got to be a road favourite here. And there's variables around the Tigers that I can't answer. And, a lot of questions are going to be asked. So it's Cronulla or nothing. But when you just look at the makeup of this West side, they are still a very dangerous team if taken lightly. It's just enough for me to say, I'm intrigued, but I don't know how this one plays out. So I'll just stay off it. And I'm quite satisfied with the 4 best bets that I have shared with you this evening. But that's not the end of the tips, because we've still got our 4th sharpshooter, Nicole, who is tipping very long odds, and I think he's yet to hit, but it only takes one and then he rockets to the top of the leaderboard. Let's listen to who he likes in this one.
Hey everyone, it's Nicole from Wiki. Hope you guys are going well and enjoying your long weekends back to back. Fanua Bolle is paying $13 anytime try scorer. His career strike rate should have him paying 7s. I think reasonably he should be paying somewhere between $7 to $10 odds anytime try scorer. $13 is insane. Best thing about these are the prices have actually been sticking around close to game day. So good luck if you do get on. Google Wiki Linktree for our odds comparison tools. We've got it running for NRL try scorers, AFL goal scorers, and AFL disposals. And I brought the punters preview back, so I try to put in at least 1 try scorer tip per game. We've got left v, right graphics, try map, and obviously Jacob's podcast and a couple of other things in there. So good luck, punt responsibly.
Shout out Nicole. So he likes Bolle. So prop for the Tigers. Also, actually, sometimes starting at lock as well. But either way, that Nicole loves nothing more than a middle forward try. As Ryan had commented, he hopes that Nicole was going to pick Hazelton. So that could be another one to look for. Let me know what you guys like the most. There's a couple of comments there about sort of those brain snaps by the Tigers, which is giving an indication that there's a lack of focus. Taruva, someone that publicly sort of criticized Galvin with an Instagram post and then, has a moment that he'd want back that was a critical time and gave away a penalty against Wes. How this team responds. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing that they've got the longest turnaround here. Playing on Easter Monday, you probably did want the late Sunday game. But yeah, it's a critical sort of spot in the season for the Tigers after being 3-3, but now staring down the barrel of 3-5. We're staring down the barrel of your season slipping away from you and really being damaged beyond repair. So how the club steps up here is going to be very telling. But the tough thing is when you play a side like Cronulla that's just got greater upside and greater ability, you can play a 9 or 10 out of 10 game. And if the opponent is on as well, you still might lose. And then people will still criticize West and question whether Galvin should be there, whether it's affecting teammates. So all West can do is win, and winning does heal a lot. I'm going to try and do my fair share of winning as well, my 4 best bets, and best of luck to the sharpshooters on their 4 plays as well. Let me know, as always, what you like in the comments or what you don't like as well. Appreciate you tuning in as always. Have a great week, and I'll be back Sunday to recap it all. Lego.